Hey guys, tonight's story starts with feathers in your mouth, a floor that crunches like regret, and a chicken perched on your chest like it owns the mortgage. You open your eyes, and the bed isn't a bed, it's straw. Poking places straw has no business poking. The air smells like smoke, moss, and something you can only file under barn sadness. There's no Wi-Fi, no toothpaste, no explanation. Just a low ceiling that greets your skull like an enthusiastic handshake and a villager outside screaming about turnips like it's breaking news. And somehow, this is your morning alarm now. But before you get too cozy, take a second to gently tap that new hype button YouTube just added. It really does help little guys like me push through the algorithm. And take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You open your eyes to chickens, not metaphorically, literally. One is standing on your chest, blinking slowly like it's trying to figure out if you're edible. Another pecks vaguely at your hair. Somewhere near your knee, something clucks disapprovingly, as though you've already disappointed it. The straw poking into your back is sharp in a way that makes you reconsider every mattress you've ever complained about. You shift slightly, which offends the chest chicken deeply, and it hops off with a squawk of betrayed trust. Your bed is straw. Your blanket is itchy burlap. Someone is yelling about turnips outside. You sit up too fast and immediately regret it. The ceiling is low, the beams crooked, and your head makes an enthusiastic introduction to a support beam. Dust rains down in celebration. You cough and nearly inhale a feather. The chickens scatter like drama queens, one knocking over a clay bowl that was probably valuable to someone, not you. At least, you hope not. You are not dreaming. You are, however, cold, confused, and possibly cursed. The room is dim, lit only by the light pushing through the cracks in the walls with the kind of determination usually reserved for lost cats. There's a pile of something in the corner that might be clothes, might be food, or might be a local cryptid. The air smells like smoke, moss, and something your modern brain can only categorize as barn sadness. You stand. The floor creaks ominously, as if warning you not to do anything heroic. Your knees crack like breaking twigs. You are wearing something that might once have been a tunic, currently trying to decide if it wants to be a shirt or a scandal. There's a wooden door with a crooked latch. You open it cautiously, prepared for answers or possibly fire. Instead, you're greeted by the village. If this is a theme park, the attention to detail is excessive. A goat wanders past, dragging half a fence. A child with a stick and no supervision shrieks something about mud duty. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys, not in any rush, and the sky is the kind of gray that makes you feel like you've done something wrong. Mud squelches under your bare foot as you step outside, and you learn very quickly that the village doesn't believe in shoes for newcomers, or hygiene, or mercy. An old woman on a bench squints at you like you owe her a confession. "You're not local," she says, which is both obvious and accusatory. You try to respond, but your voice comes out in a dusty croak, halfway between hello and help. She nods solemnly, like this is what she expected from your kind. Someone hands you a cup. The cup contains something warm, murky, and suspiciously textured. You thank them because they have a knife and drink. It tastes like regret and maybe boiled moss, but it's warm, and that's something. A man nearby calls you new one and slaps you on the back so hard you nearly spill your personality. He smells like horses and friendship, and his grin has exactly 3 teeth in it, all of them enthusiastic. "You'll be fine," he says, which is statistically unlikely. Another man yells something about goats on the roof again. A boy is chasing a chicken, while the chicken holds what appears to be the boy's sock in its beak like a trophy. In the distance, a church bell rings out, loud and off-key, like someone threw a wrench at a gong and called it holy. You try to find something familiar, anything that makes sense. There's a cart. There's a pig under the cart. There's a man asleep next to the pig, possibly dreaming of being the pig. A woman is hanging laundry between two trees. One of the garments is more whole than cloth, fluttering proudly like a banner of surrender. No one is panicking. Everyone is simply doing things with their hands, on purpose, like it's normal to not have phones, or shoes, or indoor plumbing. Your stomach growls. A nearby toddler growls back. You blink. The toddler wins the stare down. You sit on a log that might be furniture and try to remember how this happened. There's no memory, no explanation, just vague impressions of alarms and emails and then chickens. You check your pockets. One has a rock. The other has something damp that you refuse to acknowledge further. A man approaches with what you assume is breakfast. It's porridge. Of course it's porridge. He offers it like he's handing you gold. You accept it with the enthusiasm of a prisoner given a choice between gruel and more gruel. It's warm. It's beige. It has the texture of betrayal. You chew because people are watching. It tastes like the inside of a cardboard box left in the rain and then philosophically boiled. The old woman from earlier is still watching you. She gestures at your face, then mimes scrubbing. You assume she's telling you to wash. You smile. She scowls. You frown. She nods. The conversation is over. You have no idea what happened. A rooster crows somewhere in the distance, but it sounds sarcastic. You try to stand confidently. Your legs disagree. You wobble. A goat bleats in encouragement. You take a step, and someone cheers faintly. Or maybe that was just the wind. Behind you, someone says, "Looks like this one'll live." Another replies, "Shame. We could have used the boots." You don't know if that's a joke. No one laughs. The sky brightens. The village begins to buzz louder. People walking with purpose. Children screaming with abandon. And livestock existing loudly. It's not exactly welcoming, but it's not unwelcoming either. Just there, waiting for you to catch up. You are somehow still holding the cup of questionable broth. The chicken from earlier hops past and pecks your ankle gently, like it's checking if you've accepted your fate yet. You have not, but you will. You are discovered at dawn by a shepherd with one eyebrow and a goat that hates eye contact. He pokes you with his crook, squints like you're either an omen or a particularly unconvincing scarecrow, and calls out, "Found something odd in the hay again." The again is unsettling. More villagers arrive, summoned by curiosity and the promise of not doing chores. They form a loose circle around you, arms crossed, expressions ranging from suspicion to amusement. One girl immediately asks if you're a witch. An old man next to her replies, "Not dressed like that," and everyone nods like this is both fact and fashion critique. They ask your name. You panic. There's a long pause in your brain where once there was confidence. You consider lying, but your mouth gets there first and blurts out, "Google." The crowd goes silent. Somewhere, a rooster coughs. Then someone repeats it aloud, thoughtfully, like they're tasting it. Google. A woman with a face like a folded map says it sounds French. A younger man suggests it's probably biblical. The blacksmith shrugs and declares it foreign, which is apparently enough of an explanation for everyone to be satisfied. It sticks. You are now Google. You will regret this for the rest of your oddly medieval life. They assume you're a pilgrim, or possibly an idiot. Both are greeted with the same level of hospitality, cautious warmth, and the immediate assignment of minor labor. A boy with a missing tooth and an alarming number of questions asks if you're here to kill the dragon. You say no. He looks disappointed but not surprised. A woman hands you an onion without explanation. You accept it solemnly, as if it's a sacred object. You now owe them something called fealty, which seems to mean not running away and possibly showing up to meetings. You are led through the village like a celebrity who's just forgotten their pants. People greet you by name, not your name. New one, it's said kindly, almost affectionately, but with just enough undertone to remind you you're one misplaced spoon away from being the subject of a cautionary tale. You try to introduce yourself properly, again. Actually, it's... But the sentence is drowned out by a man yelling at a duck that has stolen a sandal. The duck wins. Your guide is a woman named Etta, who speaks like she's always halfway through a secret. She gives you a walking tour, pointing at buildings with vague commentary like, "That's the Coopers. Don't ask." And, "That's the well." We all have opinions about the well. The chapel leans like it's reconsidering religion. The bakery smells incredible but also mildly flammable. A child is aggressively petting a cat that looks like it has seen battle. You are shown a hut that she declares available. "Used to be old Tom's," she says, then adds, "He's not dead, just moved to the woods to yell at trees." The door creaks. The inside is smaller than your college dorm and smells like several kinds of root vegetables having an argument. A cot, a bucket, and something that might be soap sit in the corner. Etta claps her hands like the matter is settled. You live here now. You nod, because arguing feels like a lot. The day unfolds with confusing generosity. You are handed a tunic that fits like a sock on a watermelon. Someone gives you half a loaf of bread and a warning not to eat the dark bits. A boy offers to show you how to avoid the bees near the mill, then immediately gets stung and insists it's a blessing. You begin to suspect pain is recreational here. Around midday, you are officially introduced at the square. This means you are pointed at while Etta says something that sounds vaguely impressive. You catch the words traveler, onion, and doesn't seem dangerous. There is polite clapping. A man with a lute starts a song and forgets the words halfway through, but no one seems to mind. The sun is too high. The air smells like damp hay and mild ambition, and someone starts juggling apples. Badly. You are handed a task. Your first real job. It is sorting rocks from not rocks in a basket of root vegetables. You nod like this is normal. You are given zero instruction and maximum judgment. A girl watches you for a while before saying, "You're doing it wrong." She takes the basket and dumps it out. "These are turnips," she says. "These are stones. Don't mix them. Someone broke a tooth last week." You nod again, fully aware you are now part of a tooth-related cautionary tale. Later, you are brought to the communal fire, where dinner is something bubbling and beige. The spoon is communal. You pretend not to notice. Someone asks where you're from. You answer far. They nod, satisfied. A man leans in, whispering, "Did you bring news of the Queen?" You tell him no. He says, "Shame," and walks away like that was the end of a prophecy. Night falls abruptly. There are no streetlights, just fire, stars, and the sound of a cow arguing with a fence. You sit on a log near the fire, holding your onion like it's a talisman. People pass by, some nodding, some ignoring you completely. A girl offers you a boiled root. You accept it. It tastes like history and dirt. She smiles. You don't understand this place, but they've made space for you, in the way one makes space for a rock in a shoe. It doesn't belong, exactly, but it's here now, and no one seems ready to shake it out. You go to sleep still wearing the tunic. It smells like someone else's memories. The straw mattress is lumpy. The night is loud, but the chickens don't bother you this time. One sits nearby, like a sentry, or a warning. You are Google, you are new one, and you have an onion. The morning starts with the sound of hooves too close to your window and someone shouting, "It's stuck again," which, judging by the tone, is not about a philosophical concept, but something far more physical and goat-related. You sit up slowly, your spine making the kind of sounds usually reserved for haunted doors. There's hay in your hair, a chicken feather stuck to your face, and your mouth tastes like someone whispered the word bread at it yesterday and then took it back. The air is cold and damp and aggressively medieval. You hear a bell clang somewhere in the village and decide this is your cue to pretend you belong here. You pull on your slightly damp tunic, adjust the rope you've tied around your waist for fashion or function, or maybe just despair, and step outside into what smells like firewood, livestock, and other people's mistakes. You shuffle toward the main square, following the trail of villagers like a confused moth drawn to the faint hope of breakfast. People move with purpose. You move with confusion. Someone hands you a wooden bowl without making eye contact. You hold it like it might explode. An old woman gestures toward a large pot suspended over a fire and utters the word breakfast like a threat. You approach cautiously, bowl outstretched, and are served porridge. It's gray. Not a warm, comforting gray, like a foggy morning or your favorite hoodie. This is existential gray. The kind of gray that makes you question your choices. It slops into your bowl with a wet sound that feels accusatory. A small bubble rises to the surface and pops, releasing a scent that reminds you of wallpaper paste and distant suffering. It glares back. No sugar, no salt, no cinnamon, no jam, no garnish, no joy. Just gruel with attitude. You stare into the bowl and wonder if this is the same porridge from yesterday, just reheated and rebranded. You wonder if it has a name, if it remembers. You take a bite, mostly out of fear. The texture is both slimy and lumpy, as if it can't decide which to commit to. It sticks to your teeth and your will to live in equal measure. A man across from you nods approvingly when he sees you eat it without retching. You think this might be your first official win in this place. You chew with the enthusiasm of someone pretending they've definitely eaten worse. You make eye contact with a small child who is also eating porridge and clearly resents it on a spiritual level. You feel seen. You sit on a log that might technically qualify as a bench and focus on swallowing rather than tasting. Around you, villagers talk about crops, repairs, a dispute over a pig, and whether or not the moon was smiling wicked last night. Someone says a fox was spotted near the chicken coop. Someone else says it wasn't a fox. It was Martin in his cloak again. No one elaborates. No one questions it. Your spoon disappears. You look down and find a child with wide eyes and sticky hands clutching it like a treasure. You consider taking it back, but the child's face suggests they'd fought 3 other kids for the privilege of this theft. You let them have it. They probably needed it more. You finish your porridge by tilting the bowl and letting the glop slide slowly into your mouth like a gray tidal wave of regret. A goat bleats at you in solidarity. You return the empty bowl to the washing pile, where a man is scrubbing dishes with a rag that is more concept than cloth. He doesn't look at you, but he grunts something that could be either thanks or cursed. Either way, you take it as approval. Someone offers you a heel of stale bread. You accept it with reverence. It's hard enough to be considered a weapon in some countries, but you gnaw on it like it's the final prize in a medieval game show. It tastes vaguely of flour and deeply of disappointment. Still, it's not porridge, and that makes it special. As the morning light sharpens, people begin to peel off into their daily chores. You are handed a bucket and pointed towards something that looks like a potato field, or possibly just aggressively ugly dirt. You nod. You have no idea what you're supposed to do with this bucket, but pretending to know things has gotten you this far. Before you go, the porridge woman stops you. Her name might be Agnes or Doom. She looks you up and down like she's measuring your soul, then presses a small lump of something into your hand. It's a boiled root of indeterminate origin. She says, "For strength." You thank her, because that's what people do when someone gives them pocket vegetables. She walks away, muttering something about rain and destiny. You pocket the root. It feels important. You walk toward the field with your bucket, your tunic askew, and your new identity as a person who survives breakfast. The chickens scatter as you pass. One glares, another follows you. You do not trust it. The sky is trying to be blue but keeps getting distracted by clouds. Your stomach makes a sound like it's filing a complaint. The taste of porridge still lingers, like a bad decision that clings to the back of your teeth. You feel oddly proud. You've eaten what might be the worst meal of your life in public, and no one laughed. Or they did, and you didn't notice. Either way, you've survived it, and tomorrow, you'll probably do it again. Mabel is bigger than you expect, and wetter. Not in a freshly bathed sort of way, but in a this creature lives in mud and regrets sort of way. Her eyes are large, brown, and filled with the kind of judgment usually reserved for restaurant critics and older relatives. She blinks at you slowly, chewing something that may or may not be hay, and you can already feel the power dynamic tilting away from you. You nod politely, as if you're greeting a neighbor at a dinner party, and not a 200-pound animal capable of launching you into next week with one well-aimed hoof. The old man guiding you is named Reg. He has a beard that's trying to retire, and a limp that's either from age or Mabel herself. His instructions are simple and unhelpful. Just grab and pull, he says, gesturing vaguely toward Mabel's undercarriage, like this is a claw machine and not a delicate process involving organs and trust. You crouch beside her, the tiny three-legged stool doing its best impression of structural integrity beneath you, and you hold the dented bucket like it's going to protect you from what's coming. You reach out tentatively. Mabel shifts. You flinch. She does not. Firm, but gentle, Reg says, which somehow makes everything worse. Your first attempt is hesitant, like you're trying to defuse a bomb using only vibes. Nothing happens. Mabel exhales loudly, and you could swear it's laced with contempt. You try again, more assertively. Still nothing. It's not that milk doesn't come out. It's that the entire system refuses to acknowledge your existence. You glance up at Reg. He's not watching you. He's whittling a stick and humming what sounds like a funeral dirge. You adjust your grip and pull harder. Something squirts, but it's not the right direction, and definitely not the right thing. Mabel flicks her tail, and you get a mouthful of something that tastes like dust, fur, and ancient vengeance. You gag quietly and wipe your face with a sleeve that already smells like damp barn. You try again, because you're stubborn, and this cow has insulted your honor. You get a thin stream this time, barely a dribble, but enough to feel like you've achieved something. You grin stupidly. You feel powerful. You are one with the cow. You are a milk whisperer. Then Mabel kicks, not a warning nudge, not a gentle, please stop. No. Mabel delivers a full-body rejection of your presence. Her hoof connects with the bucket, which in turn connects with your shin, which then politely encourages the rest of your body to launch backward off the stool like a medieval rag doll. You land flat on your back in the straw, wind knocked out of you, eyes blinking at the ceiling like maybe it will provide answers. Mabel returns to chewing. The bucket rolls away with a clang. The stool lies sideways, ashamed. You're not sure if you want to laugh, cry, or sue the cow for assault. Reg finally glances down at you and nods sagely. Solid first try, he says, as if you've just run a successful relay and not been punted by livestock. You question his standards. You sit up slowly, brushing straw from your hair, your ears, your mouth. Reg offers a hand, but not to help you up, just to give you a chunk of bread that may be older than the concept of sandwiches. You chew on it while reconsidering your life choices. Mabel shifts again, clearly unimpressed with your recovery time. Reg encourages you to try again. She's got to get used to you, he says. Takes time. Like courting, but with more manure. You consider the manure part deeply as you approach her again. The stool is somehow wobblier than before, like it's actively disappointed in you now. The bucket has a new dent. You try to remember what dignity feels like. This time you go slower. You speak to Mabel in a soothing voice that makes you feel like a lunatic, but seems to placate her. She doesn't kick, but she does sigh heavily, which is an improvement. You focus, grip, pull. Milk happens. Not much, not gracefully, but enough to make a soft splash in the bucket. You don't smile this time. You don't want to jinx it. You find a rhythm. It's awkward, uneven, and you're pretty sure you're using the wrong muscles. But it works. Reg leans against a beam, nodding occasionally like he's watching a campfire, not a first-time milker praying he doesn't die. The barn is warm. Dust hangs in the sunlight, floating lazily like tiny, judgmental ghosts. Outside, someone shouts about Cabbage again. You're beginning to think Cabbage is a recurring villain around here. After several long, tense minutes, your bucket contains what could technically be called milk. Reg claps once, startling you enough to nearly upset the bucket again. "Well done, new one," he says. "You're halfway to being useful." You feel a strange flicker of pride. Mabel turns her head slowly to look at you, as if to say, "This changes nothing." You nod back respectfully. You've earned nothing except the knowledge that cows are terrifying, milking is humbling, and medieval life offers no small wins, only slightly delayed failures. You stand, stretch, and wipe your hands on a rag that is less cloth and more historical artifact. Reg takes the bucket and peers inside. "Passable," he says, which is the highest praise you've heard since arriving in this timeline. He tells you to bring a fresh tuft of hay to Mabel as thanks. You do. She accepts it with a chew and a fart. You leave the barn sore, dirty, and somehow victorious. You have survived, Mabel. You have produced milk. You are, against all odds, becoming part of this place. You just hope breakfast tomorrow isn't made with it. Bathing, it turns out, is not a daily event. It's not even a weekly event. It's more of a community rumor, passed around like folklore. Something that allegedly happens when the moon is full and the goats behave, which, according to local legend, is never. When you finally ask about it, Etta just snorts and says, "Bathing's for courtship or funerals." You don't ask which one she thinks you're closer to. There's a wash area, which is generous. It's a shallow stream with rocks that are either smooth from erosion or the spirits of past bathers trapped in shame. The water is not cold. It is aggressively frigid, the kind of cold that makes you question if you actually need blood in your extremities. You stare at it for a while, trying to mentally negotiate with the stream. It does not bargain. You are handed what they call soap. You are certain it's just disappointment in bar form. It smells like boiled regret and has the texture of a dried-out mushroom. It may or may not be alive. When you ask what it's made of, the answer is things. When you ask what kind of things, they say, "Don't worry, the lie kills it." This does not comfort you. So you scrub yourself with what is probably a war crime and try not to scream. Your skin tightens in protest. It flakes. It itches. It weeps a little. And so do you. You rinse with stream water, which hits like betrayal, and realize too late that your clothes are now wet and smell faintly of swamp and self-loathing. You lay them on a rock in the sun, praying to whatever pagan laundry god this village respects. You sit in your undertunic, which feels both too thin and too revealing. A goat watches you from a distance like it's writing a report. There is no towel. There is only air and time. Tooth care is a separate trauma. You're given a twig with frayed ends and told to give it a chew. There's a little pile of ashes nearby, which you're apparently supposed to rub on your teeth for whitening. You look around for cameras. There are none. This is real. You chew the twig. It tastes like tree. You dip it in ash. You now taste like campfire and sadness. You scrub. You try not to gag. You wonder how long your gums will remain attached. The villagers seem fine with this. Some even hum while doing it, like it's a soothing ritual and not mouth exfoliation with fireplace debris. You ask if there's anything minty. They laugh. Hair care is another disaster. Your hair, which has not been properly washed since your sudden arrival, now has the consistency of hay soaked in oil and regret. A small child offers you moss. You think it's a prank, but they look sincere. You rub it in anyway. It does not help. A woman named Yilsa hands you a comb carved from bone and tells you it belonged to her great-grandmother. You try to smile and not cry. The comb has teeth like tiny judgmental daggers. You begin the long, painful process of dragging it through your hair, and the first pass makes you see your ancestors. The comb snags. It protests. Your scalp rebels. You pull gently, then firmly, then with quiet fury. The comb makes a sound like someone stepping on a haunted accordion. You find things in your hair. Not creatures, thankfully, but entire narratives. Straw, twigs, what might be a breadcrumb, and a single tiny bead you don't remember acquiring. You remove them all and place them beside you like offerings. Yilsa watches without comment. She nods when you finish, as if surviving grooming is a rite of passage. Maybe at Island, you rinse your comb in the stream and hand it back with reverence. Yilsa pats your arm. Not bad for a new one, she says, which is the village equivalent of a standing ovation. You stand, wincing as your skin, now aggressively clean and mildly raw, stretches in ways it hasn't since gym class in 8th grade. Your clothes are still damp. You put them on anyway. The cold fabric clings in all the wrong places and none of the right ones. You walk back toward the village, dripping and deeply aware of every step. A chicken sees you and turns away. Even it has standards. You pass by Reg, who sniffs the air and raises an eyebrow. You wash up or fall in? He asks. You say both. He nods like, that's the correct answer. Someone throws you a cloth that might be a towel, or possibly a curtain. You wrap it around your shoulders like a medieval superhero with poor hygiene and worse fashion sense. There is no deodorant. There is a pouch of dried herbs you are supposed to rub under your arms. You do this. You now smell like rosemary and panic. It's still better than before. As the sun sets, you sit near the communal fire, feeling marginally less like a walking compost bin. Your hair is cleanish. Your teeth feel scraped by fate. Your body is scrubbed to the brink of its tolerance. You've survived bathing day. Barely. You stare into the flames, clutching your makeshift towel cape, and accept your new reality. Hygiene is not a routine here. It's a saga. They wait for you like cats around a bird bath. Still, quiet, and definitely plotting. There are 5 of them, but they sit with the gravity of 30. Arranged in a half circle around the village well, like the world's least inviting knitting circle, they wear shawls made of wool and menace. Their expressions are both identical and uniquely judgmental. Each face is a new flavor of suspicion. Mild contempt, thinly veiled disapproval, ancient weariness, pointed curiosity, and pure scowl. You approach like someone stepping into a job interview they didn't apply for and can't escape. You're not summoned. That would be too dignified. Instead, you are absorbed, dragged in by the force field of their collective gaze, pulled like a leaf into a drain. You consider walking past, pretending you don't notice them, but they've already tilted their heads in synchrony, the kind of tilt that says, "We know you, stranger." And maybe also, "We know what you did to that turnip." One of them points to the ground in front of them. It's not a request. You sit, awkward and exposed, trying to arrange your limbs in a way that conveys both respect and non-threat. You fail, the oldest among them. Possibly 1,000 years old, possibly just really good at glowering, leans forward slightly. "Where are you from, new one?" she asks, as though she's already decided the answer and just wants to watch you get it wrong. You hesitate. Saying the future feels like a bad idea. Saying the city feels like a lie. Saying nothing feels dangerous. You mumble something about far away, which is technically true and emotionally bankrupt. Another elder snorts. "They always say that," she mutters, adjusting her shawl like she's swaddling herself in judgment. They ask what you do. You say, "Many things," which translates poorly. One narrows her eyes and repeats, "Many?" as if you've just claimed to control the weather. You try to clarify. Something vague about helping people, knowledge, and maybe writing, but it quickly crumbles under their silence. One taps her walking stick twice against the stones. You don't know if that's a signal or just punctuation. They don't trust your boots. You can feel it. One of them stares at them so long you begin to question if your boots are evil. She finally mutters, "Too clean." You want to explain rubber soles, mass production, the tragedy of orthotics, but you don't. You just nod like someone caught sneaking cake at a funeral. Another shakes her head. "Posture's all wrong," she says, which is something you've suspected since age 13 but hurts more coming from someone who survived 4 plagues and a bandit uprising. They ask about your family. You say they're not here. They nod solemnly, then immediately suspect you of being orphaned by sin or exile. You consider lying and inventing a noble backstory, but one of them says, "Your eyes twitch when you fabricate, and you go very still." They ask what gods you follow. You mention kindness and science, which might as well be witchcraft. Someone whispers, "Soft." Someone else nods. The questions keep coming. Do you know how to gut a fish? Not well. Can you thatch a roof? Not at all. Have you ever healed a sick pig? No, but you once fed one medicine through a peanut butter sandwich. They stare at you. You stare back. A dog barks in the distance, desperate to break the tension. It fails. The smallest elder, wrapped in a blanket the size of a small country, finally leans forward. Her voice is softer than the others, but somehow more dangerous. "You got the look of a soft one," she says. You think about defending yourself, about listing your achievements, your modern adaptability, your ability to operate microwaves with one hand. But all you say is, "Yes." She leans back, satisfied. Apparently, agreeing with your own weaknesses is the only correct answer so far. They switch languages mid-conversation. Not literal ones, but conversational dialects you're not equipped for. One speaks only in parables, another grunts and points. The third quotes sayings that contradict each other every other sentence. You try to follow, but it's like playing charades with riddles inside a folktale. Eventually, you just nod whenever someone pauses and hope it doesn't get you assigned to leech duty. A silence falls, the kind that stretches. One by one, they look at you with the piercing calm of people who've buried more husbands than they've counted birthdays. Then the tallest elder, the one whose eyes have not blinked this entire time, points her cane directly at your chest. "You'll need to prove yourself," she says. You nod, because obviously, "To the land," she adds. "Sure. Land? Fine. To the animals. Understandable. To the storm," she finishes, ominously. You blink. They don't explain what any of that means. They don't need to. You are dismissed with the subtlety of someone sneezing at a royal banquet. One of them says, "You can go," while not looking at you, and that's apparently the clearest you're going to get. You stand, every joint unsure of itself, and walk away under the weight of their combined silence. You've never felt more visible and less acknowledged at the same time. As you pass the well, one elder speaks up, almost kindly. "Keep your boots dirty and your words fewer. We'll see how you last." You nod. You don't look back. The village swallows you again, and you begin to wonder if being judged by 5 wool-draped cryptids is just the start of something much, much harder. The hoe is heavier than you expect, and shaped like a tool designed by someone with a grudge against backs. It is handed to you by a man named Wulfric, who has hands the size of hams and a beard that begins somewhere near his eyes and ends somewhere around his belt. He says nothing, just thrusts the wooden handle toward you and jerks his head in the direction of a field that looks like it lost a battle with weather and time. You take the hoe like someone accepting a cursed artifact, and Wulfric watches you walk away with the look of a man who knows he'll be redoing all your work by sundown. The field is not welcoming. It is a rectangle of resistance, filled with lumpy earth, suspicious rocks, and the occasional angry beet poking its leafy head from the soil like a middle finger. You're told to weed a row, then loosen the soil, and not disturb the sacred order of the turnips. You don't know what that means. No one offers clarification. You begin. The first thing you do is step directly into something squishy that may have once been compost and now exists solely to destroy socks. You dig in with the hoe. It hits a rock. You adjust. It hits another rock. You try again. The hoe bounces like a trampoline, and you nearly smack yourself in the forehead. You recover. You persevere. You ruin 3 rows of perfectly acceptable beets by hoeing them directly out of the ground and flinging them over your shoulder into a nearby puddle. You look up to see a young man kneeling beside a woman, holding a beet with great sincerity and mid-proposal. Your rogue beet lands directly between them, splattering mud and shattered romance across their faces. The woman gasps. The man glares at you like you just ran over his dreams with a cart. The beet proposal is over. You mouth, "Sorry," and turn back to your row. You are not built for this. Farming, you realize, is not just physical. It's emotional. It's spiritual. It's dirt under your nails, sweat in your eyes, and the dawning realization that every bite of food you've ever eaten came from someone stronger and more patient than you. Your back begins to ache in places that don't normally exist in modern life. You miss chairs. You miss Advil. You miss not knowing what blister fluid looks like. A goat appears, uninvited, and immediately begins chewing on your sleeve. You try to shake it off. It follows. You jog a little. It jogs too. You start to question whether it's a goat or an agent of chaos in a wool costume. You swat gently. It bleats and digs in with more determination. You surrender the sleeve. No one helps you. In fact, the other villagers in the field are pretending not to notice you. One woman glances over and quickly looks away like you're an awkward relative at a wedding. A boy nearby is deliberately hoeing faster, as if to say, "This is how it's done, city creature." You try to mimic him and almost dislocate something important. You pause for water. It tastes like disappointment and river. You wipe your face with a sleeve that is now mostly goat saliva. You look down at your hands. They are no longer yours. They belong to someone who digs holes for a living and cries about it later. The sun is not helpful. It scorches. The dirt has formed a new ecosystem in your eyebrows. A beet leaf has fused with your sock. You keep going because quitting feels worse. You try a rhythm. You try humming. You hum the chorus to a pop song that hasn't been invented yet and almost forget where you are. It helps. For about 2 minutes. Then your hoe strikes something soft and the earth makes a noise that should not come from soil. You freeze. You've unearthed something gelatinous and worm-like and wriggling with indignation. A nearby villager casually glances over and says, "Just a root eel." Like this explains anything. You back away slowly. The root eel reburies itself like it has places to be. You consider joining it. At one point, Wulfric returns and surveys your row. He grunts once. You can't tell if it's good or bad. He adjusts a few beets, reburies a few you've half-excavated like failed archaeologist attempts. Then he says, "It's not the worst I've seen," and walks off. You clutch that praise like a diploma. Eventually, the sun begins to lower. The air shifts. Someone calls for evening bread. You drop the hoe like it's toxic. Your arms no longer bend properly. Your knees make a sound that alarms even the goat. You wobble toward the communal bench, covered in filth and possibly beet juice. You're bleeding from somewhere and you don't care. No one applauds. No one offers thanks. But an old man nods slightly as you pass, and the goat no longer tries to eat you. That's something. You sit. The bread is hard, the cheese harder. but it's food, and it's earned. You chew slowly, staring at your dirt-caked hands, and begin to understand why farmers rarely smile. It's not because they're unhappy. It's because they're too tired to remember how. The bell rings before dawn. It sounds less like a bell and more like someone aggressively hitting a pan with a stick, but the intent is clear. People start moving. Doors creak open. Cloaks are pulled over heads. You try to pretend you're asleep, but a child throws a small rock at your straw bed and shouts, "Mass!" like it's both an invitation and a threat. Your legs ache from farming. Your hands are still haunted by yesterday's encounter with a root eel. You want to crawl back into your burlap cocoon and dream of things that make sense, like electricity or indoor plumbing. Instead, you sit up and remember that in this village, free breakfast only comes after the Lord. Church is not optional. They don't march you there, exactly, but the implication is strong. The same way a wolf doesn't ask the sheep to move. You follow the crowd, half limping, half guessing where you're supposed to be. The building is old, older than logic, with stones stacked like someone tried to build a fortress, got bored, and decided on a spiritual compromise instead. There's a wooden door so heavy it takes 2 men to open, and it groans like it has opinions. Inside, it smells like incense, damp wool, and centuries of unspoken confessions. The benches are long and unforgiving, made of wood that clearly resents the concept of comfort. You sit between a boy who keeps humming tunelessly and a woman who clutches a dried flower and stares straight ahead like she's solving a murder in her mind. You smile at her. She does not smile back. The priest arrives in a robe that looks like it once saw glory, but now mostly sees moths. He has the weary eyes of a man who's delivered the same sermon every week for decades and knows no one's ever going to follow the advice. He begins speaking in Latin, which means you catch maybe 2 words, and even those are probably guesses. You nod occasionally to seem respectful. Everyone else is doing a synchronized head bow routine and you try to join in, but your timing is off. You bump heads with the humming boy. He frowns at you. You whisper sorry. He whispers, "Sinner." The sermon is long, not metaphorically long, actual, unforgiving, time-slowing, long. It has multiple parts, each with its own pacing, structure, and subplots. At one point, there's singing, then kneeling, then more kneeling. You wonder if this counts as a leg workout. Your calves whimper. Halfway through, the priest closes his eyes and begins a prayer that feels more like a nap. His voice trails off, and for a moment, you think he's meditating. Then he starts snoring. Not loud, but steady. The congregation does not react. This seems normal. The humming boy reaches over and flicks your arm, like it's your job to fix this. You do not fix it. A baby starts crying somewhere behind you. It's not just a cry. It's a full, passionate aria of despair. The kind of sound that could summon wolves. No one moves to comfort the baby. You assume this is part of the spiritual growth process. The woman next to you continues staring ahead, unmoved by infant sorrow or divine slumber. You're beginning to suspect she's never blinked. Then, the rooster arrives. It's unclear if this is a regular guest or an ambitious escapee, but it marches down the aisle like it owns the place. Its feathers are proud, its eyes wild, and its crows echo off the stone walls with surprising acoustics. The priest stirs, but does not wake. The rooster hops onto the altar and pecks at a candle. The baby intensifies. You are now at a spiritual rave, hosted by poultry and human exhaustion. Somehow, no one is surprised. A man gets up slowly, like he's done this before, and gently scoops the rooster under one arm. It continues crowing, defiantly, like it has opinions about salvation. The man carries it out. The rooster does not go quietly. You sit back and let the moment wash over you. The sermon resumes. You're not sure when. The priest wakes mid-verse, picks up exactly where he left off and carries on with the holy momentum of someone who absolutely did not just sleep through a chicken-based intermission. You admire his commitment. Eventually, there is a final song. It's long, off-key, and strangely comforting. Everyone sings, including the flower-clutching woman, whose voice is both lovely and somehow accusatory. You try to hum along, pretending to know the melody. The boy glares again. You stop. When it ends, there's no applause, just a collective exhale. The doors creak open again, and the congregation spills out like a quiet flood of wool and relief. You follow them, blinking in the morning light, unsure if you just attended a service or survived an ancient trial. Someone presses a hunk of rye bread into your hand. You thank them. They say, "God sees effort." You nod. You take a bite of the bread. It's dry and crumbles like dust, but it's something. You walk slowly, feeling oddly lighter. Maybe it's the bread. Maybe it's the fact that, for all its chaos and sleepiness and livestock interruptions, the church feels like something real, not polished or comprehensible, but grounding, like roots. You pass the priest later, outside by the well, sipping something from a wooden cup. He looks at you, shrugs, and says, "Good Mass." You smile, and for reasons you can't explain, you agree. You wake to the sound of clucking. Not the gentle background cluck you've heard in documentaries or quaint farm videos, but the aggressive, guttural kind that feels like a threat. A woman in a headscarf shoves a basket into your hands before you've even rubbed the sleep from your eyes. She points at the chicken coop, mutters something about eggs, and walks away as if sending you into battle. You stand there with straw still in your hair, holding the basket like a shield, and realize this is your new life. The coop looks innocent enough from the outside, a lopsided wooden hut with a door that creaks like it has secrets. The chickens inside, however, are waiting. You step cautiously into their domain, your boots crunching on hay and something less identifiable. Dozens of beady eyes swivel toward you. They don't blink, they don't move, they just watch. You try to remember that you are bigger than them, that you have opposable thumbs, but the logic falters when one of them flaps its wings like a gladiator warming up. You spot an egg nestled in the straw, glowing faintly in a shaft of sunlight like divine treasure. You crouch, basket balanced awkwardly on your knee, and reach out with the trembling reverence of a man stealing holy relics. Your fingers are inches away when it happens. The hen attacks, not a peck, not a warning flap. This is a full assault. Wings explode into motion, feathers blast into your face, and the beak comes at you like a medieval weapon designed specifically for your shins. You yelp, flail, and accidentally kick over the basket, which now rolls away across the dirt like it wants no part of this situation. The hen screams, in a voice you're fairly certain is Latin for infidel. You stumble backward, arms pinwheeling, eyes stinging with feather dust. The egg you tried to rescue rolls away into the straw and cracks with a splat that smells faintly of regret. The hen puffs up, twice her normal size, and comes at you again. You grab a stick, wave it desperately, and shout, "Back, demon!" which does nothing except make the chickens in the corner tilt their heads in synchronized confusion. Outside, laughter erupts. Children have gathered, watching through the gaps in the wooden slats, pointing and shrieking with joy. One boy yells, "She likes you," and the others collapse into giggles. You do not feel liked. You feel hunted. The hen jumps, not flaps, jumps, straight onto your arm. Her claws dig in, and you scream, spinning in circles like a man possessed. She rides you like a knight atop a horse, wings slapping against your ear as if she's trying to pilot you into the Sunday. You stagger into the wall of the coop, splinters sticking into your palm, and trip over a bucket that someone left exactly where your dignity would fall. You hit the ground with a thud, flat on your back. The hen stands triumphantly on your chest, glaring down at you as if daring you to move. You don't. You lie perfectly still, wheezing, waiting for her to declare victory and leave. She doesn't. She leans closer, beak inches from your nose, and clucks once. A sound of finality. Eventually, a woman enters, lifts the hen with practiced ease, and tucks her under one arm like a loaf of bread. "Ah," she says, smiling faintly. "Marta likes you." She pats the hen's head as if she's not holding a violent spirit in feather form. The children outside howl with laughter. One mimics your scream so perfectly you'd applaud if you weren't so winded. You sit up, covered in feathers, scratches, and humiliation. Your basket is overturned, containing one egg that is cracked and leaking faintly onto your sleeve. The woman picks it up, examines the bruise-like dent, and drops it into your palm. "Good," she says cheerfully, as if you've completed a heroic deed. "You'll get better." She walks away with the hen, who turns her head to glare at you over the woman's shoulder. You feel the promise of vengeance in that look. You stumble out of the coop, hair wild, tunic askew, egg dripping down your wrist. The villagers are waiting. The old men near the well are grinning through their tooth gaps. The children are reenacting your downfall with exaggerated flaps and dramatic collapses into the mud. Even the blacksmith, who rarely shows emotion, is chuckling into his beard. You hold up the egg like a trophy, trying to salvage some pride, but it slips from your fingers and bursts on the ground. The laughter doubles. You consider swearing an oath of eternal war against all poultry, but you realize quickly that in this place, the chickens would probably win. You walk away, defeated, feathers still clinging to your hair like cruel decorations. Behind you, the coop erupts in clucks, a chorus of victory songs from beaks sharpened by destiny. You mutter to yourself that at least you won't have to try again tomorrow. You are wrong, because in the Middle Ages, breakfast always begins with a battle. And the chickens? They never lose. The first time you ask where the bathroom is, they laugh. Not cruelly, just softly, like someone watching a child try to eat soup with a fork. Then someone points toward a narrow path leading into the woods behind the mill. You hesitate. You ask again, this time slower, assuming maybe you mispronounced something. The answer doesn't change, just that same finger, pointing at destiny. The path is worn, slightly curved, lined with weeds that look like they bite. You follow it with the solemnity of a condemned man walking toward his fate. A bird screams above you. It might be an omen, or maybe just a bird with issues. Either way, you feel watched. At the end of the path is a small clearing, and in the center, like a forgotten monument, sits the latrine. It is not a building. It is not even a shed. It is, as advertised, a hole. A large, gaping hole ringed with wooden planks that serve as a seat. Sort of. There is no privacy, no door, no curtain, no walls. Just open air, a low stump for your clothes, and a very judgmental goat chewing something unidentifiable 10 feet away. You try to convince yourself this isn't so bad. You've camped before. You've peed in the woods. You've braved festival porta-potties. You can handle this. You cannot handle this. The smell hits first. It isn't a smell so much as a presence. It greets you like an ancient spirit rising from the depths to offer you a lesson in humility. Your eyes water. Your soul recoils. Your ancestors whisper, "Leave this place." The goat sneezes, which somehow makes it worse. You inch closer, trying to breathe through your mouth, which is a rookie mistake. The taste of the air is something beyond science. A mixture of fermented hay, despair, and memories of every villager who has ever made this journey. You feel unworthy. You check the wooden planks, hoping for stability, but they creak ominously under your hand. There's a small spider web in the corner, complete with a very large spider that looks like it pays rent. You apologize to it out loud. It doesn't move. Possibly because it understands this is your trial, not its own. With the dignity of a haunted scarecrow, you begin. You do not sit. You hover. You perform a squat that defies gravity and respect. You are grateful for your modern core strength. You think about taxes to distract yourself. Then the goat takes a step closer. It doesn't do anything. It just stares, chewing in slow, deliberate judgment. You are now locked in a silent standoff with a barnyard animal while attempting the most vulnerable act a human can undertake. You whisper, "Please look away." It does not. If anything, it seems more invested now. You try to finish quickly. You try not to cry. You consider renouncing food altogether, living a life of holy abstinence and mint leaves just to avoid ever returning to this sacred pit. But eventually, the deed is done. You straighten up, shaky-legged and spiritually older. You do not feel victorious. There is no toilet paper, of course, just a pile of leaves, some smooth stones, and something someone has labeled rag, which is exactly as horrifying as it sounds. You make choices. You make peace with those choices. As you leave, the goat follows you for a few paces, then stops and watches you go, like a monk, silently acknowledging that you have passed your test. You nod back at it. A mutual respect is formed. You emerge from the path pale, wide-eyed, and whispering prayers you didn't know you knew. A child sees you and runs to tell someone. An old woman claps once and says, "Your first time?" You nod, unable to speak. She pats your arm like someone who's seen war. Back in the village, you stare into your bowl of gruel and wonder how any civilization endured like this. You consider the inventions of the future: flush handles, air freshener, walls, and realize you've lived in paradise your entire life and never appreciated it. Someone offers you dried figs. You decline. You're not ready. Later that night, you lie awake in your straw bed, staring at the thatched ceiling and thinking about the hole. You think about all the people who use it daily like it's normal. You think about the goat. You think about who you were before and who you are now. You are changed, not physically, though your legs still tremble from the squat of endurance, but something internal has shifted. You've seen the abyss. You've hovered over it. You've breathed its truths, and somehow, against all odds, you survived. You close your eyes. The wind outside rustles the trees. A chicken clucks in its sleep. In the distance, the goat bleats once. You shudder, but sleep eventually finds you, because nothing, not even medieval plumbing, can stop the march of time. You make your first mistake before breakfast. It happens during a lull in the communal fire pit conversation, somewhere between a debate about the weather spirits and a heated discussion over whether beans should be boiled twice or thrice. You open your mouth, bleary-eyed, still clutching your morning mug of what might be hot broth or diluted tragedy, and casually mention that back home you used to order food with your phone. The silence is immediate and absolute. Even the chickens stop moving. 6 pairs of eyes turn toward you, like you've just confessed to kissing demons. You realize too late that phone was not the word to lead with. Someone squints. Another crosses themselves. The old man who always smells like barley mutters something about sky voices. You try to clarify, but the damage is done. You are now the village oracle, or possibly a heretic. You attempt to fix it by explaining. This is your second mistake. You launch into a poorly structured description of the internet, beginning with Google, because what's more universal than the concept of asking an invisible box for the answer to everything? You describe typing questions into a glowing rectangle and receiving responses instantly, and you are halfway through your comparison to a magical librarian when someone gasps. A child asks, in a whisper loud enough to be heard by birds, if Wi-Fi is a type of herb that grows near moonstones. You say no, and then you make the fatal error of mentioning memes. That's when the blacksmith gets up and blesses himself. He doesn't say a word. He just backs away from the fire like it might explode and disappears into the fog with the speed of a man avoiding contagious lunacy. You are left blinking, mid-sentence, explaining the concept of a dancing frog that sings the lyrics to old songs while wearing a top hat. No one laughs. They look at you like you've recited prophecy. You try to pivot. You backtrack. You say it's just a joke people share. Like tavern humor, but from everyone, from everywhere, at once. This does not help. Now they think you can hear voices from across the world. When you mention videos, someone asks if you've seen the devil himself. You nod politely, thinking of certain comment sections, and that doesn't help either. They begin to ask questions, cautiously, like you might combust. Do these voices live in your mirror? Can they see you? Did the king send them? You explain again, slower, trying to ground it. It's like a town crier who screams cat pictures and arguments about soup, you say. You regret it the moment it leaves your mouth. Now they're stuck on the idea of cats talking and why anyone would argue about soup when soup is soup. A boy, maybe 7, asks if you are a wizard. You deny it. He asks again. You deny it more loudly. His eyes light up, and he runs to tell his friends that the new one just revealed they're a wizard in denial. You are now the wizard denial. By lunch, it spreads. A group gathers near the well to ask about other things the net can do. You try to explain online shopping, which turns into a deeply confusing discussion about invisible carts, enchanted delivery men, and the terrifying concept of 2-day shipping. They ask if these invisible men are bound by blood oath. You say no. They seem disappointed. You mention social media. A woman gasps. You mean everyone talks to each other at once? She says, horrified. Even the idiots? You nod solemnly. She clutches her apron and murmurs a prayer. By mid-afternoon, you've drawn a small crowd. A man brings you a chicken feather and asks if you can use it to contact your faraway voices. Someone else offers you a potato to feed the light box. A girl hands you a drawing of a cat and asks if this is how you summon the memes. You stare at the cat. It's surprisingly accurate. You don't know how to respond. Eventually, you just give up. You say yes. Yes, that's exactly how it works. The internet is a village scribe trapped in a box who screams images of animals and gives you recipes in exchange for your soul. That seems to satisfy them. You eat dinner alone, not by choice, just slowly, at the edge of the fire pit, while people occasionally glance over and nod with new respect. They still think you're strange, but now it's the kind of strange that carries a little mystery, the kind they might one day consult for advice on goat-related dreams or the meaning of mushrooms growing in specific patterns. You finish your meal and head to your cot. On the way, someone calls out, "Wizard denial." You turn. It's the blacksmith. He holds up a smoothed stone and asks if you can download warmth into it. You say you'll try tomorrow. As you lie down, you wonder if this is how legends start. Not with fireballs or quests, but with confused metaphors and a society that has never seen a screen. You pull the burlap blanket over your shoulders, still itchy despite your best efforts, and think of all the things you miss. Wi-Fi, takeout, notifications you could ignore. But here, you are a myth, and part of you, some strange, tired part, kind of likes it. The market is not a place. It is a test. You follow the crowd down the muddy path toward the open square, clutching a few copper coins and a naive sense of optimism. There is talk of market day as if it's a celebration. Laughter, food, community. But this is propaganda. The moment you arrive, the truth hits you like a cabbage to the face. It is chaos. Stalls made of uneven wood, and hope lean precariously in a circle around the square. The air is dense with the scent of raw fish, wet wool, and something that might be goat breath. Someone is selling eels out of a bucket. Someone else is shouting about turnip miracles. 2 men are arguing over who owns a pig. Neither of them are touching. The pig, wisely, is trying to leave. You take a cautious step forward, A hand appears from nowhere and shoves a dried apple under your nose. "Sweetest in the Shire," the vendor cries, before sneezing directly onto their own inventory. You retreat. You remember your goal. Bread, just a loaf. Nothing fancy. Something edible and less terrifying than your last meal, which had the consistency of damp gravel and may have contained twigs. You scan the stalls for anything remotely bread-like and finally spot it. Round, crusty, golden, stacked beside a man who looks like he's made entirely out of elbows and scowls. You approach slowly, politely. You point. "Bread?" He looks you up and down and says, "7." You assume he means coins. You count. You have 5. You offer them with the smile of someone who hopes charm can cover math. He frowns. 6. This 5 ride. Intation. You blink. Didn't he just say 7? You're being negotiated upward. You squint, trying to remember how bargaining works. In your time, it mostly involved coupon codes and passive-aggressive chatbots. Here, it's a contact sport. You try again. 5 and a favor? He snorts. 5 and the chicken then. You don't have a chicken. You tell him this. He shrugs. Then 5 and no bread. This feels personal. You turn away, determined to find a better deal. You try another stall where a woman with suspiciously fast hands is offering hot pies that are neither hot nor clearly pies. She quotes you a price, then changes it when she hears your voice. You haggle. You fail. You begin to wonder if this entire event is a simulation designed to test your emotional limits. You wander for what feels like hours. You are jostled, shouted at, offered 3 kinds of mushrooms you didn't know existed, and one handmade comb that you're pretty sure is just a stick with ambition. You nearly trade your cloak for a handful of figs before realizing they are, in fact, wax. You finally spot an elderly woman sitting beside a crate of bread. She looks serene, which in this context feels suspicious. You approach cautiously and ask the price. She studies you for a moment, then says, 1. You blink. 1 coin? She nods. You hand it over before she can change her mind. She smiles, hands you a loaf the size of your head, and then says, "And the chicken." Again with the chicken. You turn, confused, and that's when you see it. A small, mottled bird tucked against your leg like it belongs there. It stares up at you with the hollow-eyed confidence of someone who has survived things. You have no idea where it came from. It wasn't there 10 minutes ago. You bend down. It doesn't move. You pick it up. It accepts this. You are now holding a chicken. The woman nods, satisfied. "There," she says. "Fair trade." She takes the chicken from your arms and gently tucks it under her shawl. You begin to walk away, bread in hand, still wondering what just happened. You get 5 steps before the chicken returns. You don't see it approach. You just feel something brush your ankle, and there it is again, looking up at you with eyes that say, "We've been through too much to part now." You try to ignore it. You walk faster. So does it. You duck behind a cart. So does it. It is now a game of poultry-based hide-and-seek. Eventually, you give up. You pick up the chicken. It settles into your arms like this was always meant to be. Someone nearby chuckles and says, "Looks like you've been chosen." You nod, because that's easier than explaining anything. You walk home with your bread, your dignity in tatters, and your new roommate. The chicken follows you into your hut. You try to shoo it out. It pecks your foot. You try again, gently this time. It stares. You leave the door open. It doesn't leave. You offer it a bit of the bread. It accepts. You sigh. His name is Clive now. Clive the chicken takes up residence on your straw mattress, next to the itchy blanket and the pile of regrets. He clucks softly in his sleep. You, meanwhile, lie awake, wondering if you've adopted a chicken or been adopted by one. Either way, you have bread and a roommate and a creeping suspicion that next market day, You might come home with a goat. You don't mean to save the day. You're just standing in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong reflexes. The cart comes barreling down the hill like it's late for a duel, wheels spinning wildly, a sack of onions bouncing like popcorn in a hot pan. There's no driver, just momentum and panic. You look up, see it hurtling toward you, and do what any sensible modern person would do when faced with a medieval projectile on wheels. You freeze and make a sound that translates roughly to mfga. Time slows, the villagers scream, a goose takes flight, and then your survival instincts, apparently trained by decades of poorly coded video game tutorials and one Tai Chi class in college, kick in. You lunge sideways, flail dramatically, and somehow grab the front of the cart as it rattles past. Physics betrays you. You are now riding the cart. It bucks and careens as if insulted by your presence. You cling to the side like a very stupid barnacle. The cart hits a rock. You are airborne for one breathless, regret-filled second before gravity reintroduces itself with authority. You land in a cabbage stall. Cabbages fly. A goat faints. Silence. Then, applause. You sit up, head full of leaves and new anxieties, and find yourself surrounded. A few children are staring at you like you've just summoned a dragon and asked it to do tricks. One hands you a partially melted candle. Another offers a stick. You take both, unsure of protocol. The cart, now upside down and slightly on fire, smolders quietly beside a tree. You are fine. Bruised, baffled, possibly concussed. But fine. The village, of course, makes this a whole thing. By supper, you've been called brave 6 times and reckless 8. The blacksmith claps you on the back hard enough to reset your posture. A woman knits you a scarf out of what feels like wire and sheep gilt. You wear it because refusing gifts here is treated like spitting on someone's grandmother. Someone starts calling you the Cart Whisperer. It is not a nickname you earn, so much as one that is forcefully bestowed. You try to correct it. Explain that you didn't actually do anything heroic, that you were mostly just confused and had poor footwork. But no one listens. A bard scribbles your name into a song that already rhymes bravery with gravy. You hear it hummed that evening near the well. The children follow you for days. They reenact the event with sticks and old barrels, occasionally demanding you teach them the cart trick. You tell them there was no trick. They don't care. One asks if you have powers. You say yes, the power of situational clumsiness. They gasp like you just revealed your true form. The elders are less enthusiastic. They gather near the fire pit, wrapped in their shawls and skepticism, and watch you like you might spontaneously combust. One of them mutters that this is how the last folk hero started, by tripping into a lake and accidentally curing someone's warts. Another claims you're courting disaster. You tell them you'd prefer to court someone with fewer chickens. They do not laugh. Still, you're fed better that night. Someone hands you a muffin the size of your fist, declares it hero's bread, and walks away before you can object. You bite into it and immediately chip a tooth. It's unclear what part of it is food and what part is commemorative stone. Clive, your chicken, now rides on your shoulder like a pirate mascot. You don't remember teaching him this, but you're too tired to argue. He seems to enjoy the view and occasionally pecks at your scarf like he's trying to test its tensile strength. The villagers seem to think this is part of your charm. You let them. By the end of the week, the stories have evolved. You are no longer the person who stopped the cart. You are the one who leapt in front of it with no regard for personal safety, wrestled the reins from death itself, and gently steered the beast to a halt while whispering lullabies. The onions have been upgraded to barrels of salted pork. The cabbage stall is now described as a sacred grove. You no longer correct them. It's easier this way. Besides, part of you enjoys it. Not the attention, exactly, but the sense of being something. Back home, you were mostly a username and a Wi-Fi signal. Here, you're a walking myth with a chicken and a chipped tooth. You have a place in a story now, even if it's one held together by exaggeration and bread rocks. You sit by the fire that night, the scarf around your neck itching like ambition, and listen to the newest version of your tale being told to a wide-eyed audience. You are heroic, noble, perhaps a little unhinged. You watch Clive peck at your boot and think about destiny. You're not sure if you're becoming someone else or just a louder version of yourself. But for the first time in weeks, you don't feel entirely misplaced. You don't notice the woman at first. She blends in with the scenery, shawl, scowl, possibly moss, and then she makes herself known with a noise that lands somewhere between a hiss and a sneeze. She spits near your shoe with theatrical precision, mutters something in a dialect that sounds like it was passed down from bats, and walks away without looking back. The villagers pretend not to notice. Or maybe they've seen this before. Maybe this is just her Tuesday. But you stare at the damp spot beside your foot like it might start bubbling. Your brain, overfed on fantasy novels and underfed on rational thought, immediately settles on one conclusion. You've been cursed. You're not sure what kind. It wasn't a full-on finger-pointing, thunderclap in the distance kind of moment. No glowing eyes, no sudden gusts of wind. But you know a dramatic act of semi-violent saliva when you see one. That was not spit of inconvenience. That was intentioned spit. You spend the rest of the morning flinching. A door creaks behind you. Curse. A crow lands on your fence. Curse courier. Your stomach grumbles. Internal sabotage. Clive, your chicken, clucks with slightly more judgment than usual. You can't be sure, but he might be trying to warn you, or he might just be mad that you forgot to share your breakfast. The lines between poultry affection and spiritual sensing are blurry. At midday, you attempt to ask the baker about local hex customs. He squints at you, flour dusting his eyebrows, and says, "That old woman? That's just Edra. She does that." You wait for more. He shrugs. "She cursed the well last year. Turned out to be algae. Still, people drank less." You ask if curses here are real. He pauses too long. Define real. You try to clarify something about magic and fate and untraceable misfortunes. He nods slowly, puts a hand on your shoulder, and says, "You should sleep with iron under your pillow, just in case." You thank him. You do not feel better. That night, you hear chanting in the woods. Low, rhythmic, echoing. It could be a ritual, or a very persistent group nap. You press your ear to the wooden wall of your hut and try to distinguish syllables, but all you get is Throom-na, followed by what may have been a burp. You are deeply unqualified to interpret ancient incantations, but you're confident it wasn't a lullaby. You try not to panic. You try very hard. You fail. You make a protective charm out of straw, one shoelace, and an old spoon. You name it Steve. Steve guards the door while you drag a hunk of iron. A rusted horseshoe you found near the stables, under your straw mattress. Clive watches from the corner with the intensity of a detective 2 days from retirement. Your sleep is not restful. You dream of shoes that walk without you, and goats with human voices. At one point, a floating turnip whispers your name and demands a tithe. You wake up in a sweat, check for goat prints, and fall asleep again to the distant sound of the woods, doing something they absolutely shouldn't. The next morning, your left eyebrow twitches. You poke it. It twitches again. You gasp. Clive flaps. A child outside laughs. It's subtle at first. A twinge here, a spasm there. But by the time you're halfway through your morning chores, you've convinced yourself that your entire face is staging a mutiny. You ask the miller if he sees anything weird about your eyebrow. He says, yes. You wait for elaboration. He walks away. You go to the herbalist. She looks at you, squints at your eyebrow, and recommends garlic, nettle tea, and avoidance of cursed thoughts. You ask how to avoid cursed thoughts. She tells you to stop talking. You leave with a bundle of moss and self-doubt. By evening, things escalate. You trip 3 times on nothing. A pot breaks near you but doesn't touch you. A cow looks at you and moos in a way that feels like a judgment. You stub your toe on a rock that wasn't there earlier. You apologize to it, just in case. You end up back at the baker's stall. He hands you a stale muffin and says, "Still cursed?" You nod, dejected. He tears the muffin in half and points at a greenish swirl inside. "Mold," he says. You stare at it. "Sometimes it's just mold," he adds. You chew the inside of your cheek. Maybe it is mold. Maybe you're not cursed. Maybe you're just living in a time where everything is dangerous. Most things are damp, and superstition is the only customer service department. But later that night, just as you're starting to let go of the idea, you find the spoon charm. Steve has been moved. You didn't move him. Clive didn't move him. You both stare at it. You go to bed with your eyes open and a horseshoe under each arm, just in case. You don't see it coming. Romance, that island. You're too busy peeling something that might be a root vegetable or a small tree branch, wondering if the smell is normal or a sign of imminent poisoning. Your hands are stained with dirt and mystery. Your face is sweaty. You are not, by any modern or medieval standard, flirt-ready. And yet, a shadow falls over you, followed by a voice like warm cider and mild sarcasm. You peel like a noble, they say. All flair, no efficiency. You turn. They're holding a basket of bread and smiling like they've never regretted anything in their life. Their sleeves are rolled. Their boots are muddy. Their grin is the kind that causes mild internal combustion. You say something brilliant, like, "Huh?" and wipe your hand on your tunic, which just transfers dirt from one area to another. They extend the bread like it's both an offering and a challenge. "You like crusty or soft?" they ask. You blink. "Bread," they clarify, though the question works either way. You don't know how to respond, because no one has ever flirted with you using baked goods and eyebrow waggles before. You accept a hunk of bread that feels like it was forged in a kiln and take a bite. It's good. Surprisingly good. The crust threatens your dental plan, but the inside is warm, buttery, and vaguely herby in a way that makes you want to write sonnets or weep. They watch you chew like they're studying your soul. "My uncle says bread is the root of all temptation," they say. I'm inclined to agree. You, full of bread and fluster, nod like a puppet with a broken neck. Words are failing you. You think you try to say, "I like this bread," but it might come out as "blé de bras." They laugh. Not at you. Well, slightly at you, but mostly in the way someone laughs when they're enjoying themselves, and also maybe you. Before you can gather your pride off the floor, a sheep trots between you, stops directly on your foot, and lets out a noise that sounds like ancient disapproval. "Jealous," they whisper. "He does this when I talk to new people." You say, "This is new?" They smile again. It's small but loaded. It might be. The next few days are strange, not because of anything obvious. You're still breaking tools with your incompetence, tripping over roots, and being casually judged by old women who might also be forest spirits. But now, there's a rhythm, a pattern. Bread appears near you more often than statistically probable. So does the person. They pop up when you're tending the fire, or pretending to know how to salt fish, or fleeing from aggressive ducks. You don't have deep conversations, not at first. It's mostly snark and crumbs and comfortable silences. They ask about your bizarre accent. You say you're from very far west. They seem to accept that. You ask about their family. They shrug and say, "Still alive, mostly." One afternoon, you both steal carrots from the communal pile. You weren't even hungry. You just didn't want to peel more turnips. They smuggle the carrots under their shirt, and you giggle like a child, which causes you both to be chased briefly by a man with impressive eyebrows and very little patience. You dive behind a stack of hay. They follow. You laugh. They don't. They just look at you, like you're not a walking question mark anymore. Like maybe you're starting to be a person here. You look back. There is an understanding. Also, a beat stuck in your hair. They pull it out and flick it at you. It misses. Clive, ever present, eats it from the dirt like it's his legal right. Later, you sit by the fire, trading trauma stories like emotional baseball cards. You talk about the first time you saw the latrine. They talk about the time they fell into it. You both nod, bonded in shared horror. You talk about how cold it gets at night. They mention their bed is warmer with company. You pretend not to hear that last part. They don't repeat it. But the next morning, you find another piece of bread left near your doorstep. It's wrapped in cloth this time, soft, still warm. There's a small flower tucked inside. It's slightly crushed, but it tries. You carry it around for hours like an idiot. That evening, you see them at the well. You hand back the cloth. They don't take it. Keep it, they say. It smells like you now. Hey, you make a noise that doesn't qualify as a language. They laugh again. It's not dramatic, this budding thing between you. There are no declarations, no violins, no candle-lit proclamations. Just bread, jokes, vegetables you definitely didn't pay for, and the occasional shoulder touch that lingers longer than physics requires. You don't know what it means, or where it's going, but you know one thing for certain. This is, without question, the healthiest relationship you've ever had. It begins with music and ends with mild head trauma. You were just trying to find the outhouse. That's it. A simple mission. But then someone shoved a roasted apple into your hand. Someone else sloshed something fizzy and violent into a wooden cup, and a child threw a wreath of questionable flowers over your head while yelling, "It begins." You still don't know what it is, but you haven't been allowed to leave since. The village, normally operating at a quiet hum of confusion and goat noises, is now full-volume chaos. Banners hang from trees, cloth dyed in colors that can only be described as natural accidents. There are booths made of sticks and hope. There is music played on instruments that appear to be both broken and haunted. There is mead. So much mead. Mead in cups, mead in jugs, mead spilled in dirt and lapped up by dogs who are now vibrating with historical joy. You are in the middle of what appears to be a festival that no one warned you about. You ask someone what the occasion island. They tell you it's the feast of St. Grimbold the Moist. You nod solemnly, as if that makes sense, and immediately begin emotionally preparing for death. There are pies, dozens of them, some sweet, some savory, some classified as weapons. You attempt to eat a hand pie, bite into something chewy, and discover it contains both pears and fish. You smile through it like someone being filmed for a hostage video. A nearby woman gives you a thumbs up and aggressively winks. You pray it wasn't her pie. The Reeve arrives and everything gets worse. He's wearing a tunic too tight for his ambitions and a hat that looks like it fought a bird and lost. He stands atop a cart and bellows something in Old Yellish. Everyone cheers. You do too, mostly from peer pressure. A drum starts. The Reeve begins to dance. It is not dancing in the traditional sense. It is more like his limbs are trying to escape him. He flails with confidence. You are handed a stick and told to join the spiral. You don't know what the spiral island. You are pushed into a circle of moving villagers. Feet stomp, arms wave. Someone shouts the word jig like a threat. You try your best, which is neither appreciated nor unnoticed. You stomp on someone's foot. They yell, but then laugh. You spin the wrong direction and smack into a man with 8 braids and no sense of personal space. He says, "You dance like a bewitched goose." You take it as a compliment. There is a contest. You don't enter it, But that's irrelevant. It's a pig costume contest, and somehow your name is on the list of judges. You suspect Clive had something to do with this. The pigs are dressed as royalty, saints, a local pond, and one inexplicably as Moonlight. The crowd oohs. You pick the Moonlight pig because its hat is shaped like existential dread. Someone boos. Someone else hands you a pickle. The pickle is warm. You don't ask questions anymore. The mead continues. It's honeyed and sharp and comes in endless supply. You drink to be polite. You drink again because you forgot what being polite meant. Eventually, politeness becomes a distant memory, and everything is warm and spinning. You try to sit. The bench is already occupied by a man named Thistle, who insists on telling you the story of his third cow. You listen to all of it. It ends with a haunting poem. At some point, you find yourself in a haystack, not near one, inside it. You don't know how you got there. There are petals in your hair. There is a smear of something jam-adjacent on your cheek. Clive is perched on your stomach like a suspicious paperweight. You think he might be guarding you. You try to sit up and feel something slide off your head. It's a crown, not a real crown. More like a ring of woven reeds, ribbon scraps, and the occasional feather. But everyone's staring. They're clapping. Someone yells, "Long live the Sprout King." You blink and try to ask a question, but accidentally hiccup a word that hasn't been invented yet. A small child declares you chosen. An old man weeps quietly and pats your hand. Someone hands you a staff made of a broomstick in sheer confidence. You have, against your will and without your knowledge, become part of the tradition. You are paraded through the village. You try to object. No one listens. They're too busy singing a song that includes your name and 3 wildly inaccurate facts about you. Someone claims you once wrestled a bear. You smile and wave because it's easier than explaining what an anxiety attack island. The night ends in firelight and ambiguous stories. You sit on a log, crowned and confused, while villagers dance in circles and a man plays an instrument that might be half goat. Bread is passed around. Mead is spilled. Stars appear above you like passive observers. Clive sleeps at your feet, dreaming of corn or vengeance. You don't know how this became your life, but for the moment, you are warm, full, vaguely honored, and lightly flammable. It could be worse. You start small. A shrug here, a nod there, just vague enough to be accepted, and just confident enough to seem like ancestral knowledge. It begins when a man asks why the sky is red in the morning. You're elbow deep in what might be cabbage, and what might be something cabbage adjacent, and your brain, which is now mostly powered by barley and anxiety, panics. "Ah," you say, squinting with fabricated meaning. "That's the blood of the sun wolves chasing the moon geese." It is not a gaze. The man blinks once, then nods slowly, like you've said something profound. He pats your shoulder and mutters, "The old ways return," before walking away into the mist. You didn't know there were sun wolves or moon geese, or that cabbage could be sticky, but now you do. Sort of. It turns out the villagers don't want facts. They want vibes. They crave confidence, dressed as folklore. Logic is for scholars and soup thieves. What the people need is a well-timed superstition with a dash of flair. The next day, someone asks why their goat won't give milk. You look at the goat, who looks back with something resembling contempt, and you say, "Probably ghost cows in the area. Territorial spirits. Very jealous." They look stunned, whisper ghost cows under their breath, and wander off to hang garlic on the barn door. You feel a little bad, but also a little powerful. You test the limits. Why did the well dry up? The frogs took offense to something. Why is the bread flat today? The wind came from the east, which confuses the yeast. Why did the blacksmith's son get hives? He insulted a fern. You say it all without smiling, which is key. Villagers respect suffering. Humor is dangerous. Jesters are technically licensed by the crown and prone to spontaneous execution. Eventually, people begin seeking your advice. You are summoned to squint at fences, sniff oddly shaped mushrooms, and declare whether a smell in the pantry is ominous or simply cheese evolving. You stop using full sentences. You start delivering wisdom in the form of heavy sighs and one-liners like, "Only a fool milks a goat at dawn." No one knows what it means, including you. But it sounds like it came from someone with an amulet and a history of cryptic loss. You gain credibility. Children start copying your walk, which is mostly uneven due to a rock in your left boot, but they think it's intentional. An old woman gifts you a scarf made of blessed wool, which might just be moldy. A man tries to pay you in turnips for your opinion on his chimney. You accept. You don't even look at the chimney. Clive, your chicken companion, begins to receive offerings. One day, you find a ring of dried lavender and 3 shiny rocks beside his perch. You suspect the local children have started a cult. Clive looks smug. You invent more sayings, because now it's expected. When the crow flies backward, plant no beans. Rain before a feast brings sour dreams. If the cat sleeps facing west, the bread must rest twice. None of them mean anything. You're basically mad-libbing peasant life. But they nod like you've confirmed what their bones already whispered. A visitor arrives one morning. He's from a neighboring village and wears a cloak with too many fasteners. He's heard of you. He wants to know the best time to harvest leeks. You don't even blink. "When the moon bites its own tail," you say. He gasps like he's seen the divine. "Of course," he mutters. "Of course, you are now something dangerously close to a sage." The elders, who previously looked at you like a wet turnip with legs, now invite you to sit near the well and judge bread. One of them asks what you think of a thunderstorm last night. You narrow your eyes and say, "Old gods, restless again." She knits faster and nods like she's been saying that for years. You catch someone carving "Only a fool milks a goat at dawn" into a beam at the tavern. You pretend not to notice, but inside, something wilts. You're becoming folklore. You are a walking proverb. You are dangerously close to being blamed for the next crop failure or moon eclipse. Still, the attention is nice. Warm bread shows up more often. People defer to your opinion on where to stack hay or which fish look shifty. You try to mention that, in your time, weather is tracked by satellite and goats don't have spiritual enemies. But no one listens. They're too busy soaking their feet in vinegar and muttering about owl omens. You meet someone who actually is a local liar. He introduces himself as Bran the Bends, which he claims is a name passed down by his uncle who could wrestle rivers. You two get along immediately. He teaches you how to fake a limp for sympathy and how to cry on command using onion vapor. You teach him how to invent folklore using vague threats and barnyard metaphors. You become co-conspirators in the theater of nonsense. Together, you declare that sneezing 3 times in a row means impending wealth or pigs. Possibly both. The villagers nod. One sneezes and immediately digs a hole. You realize you've built a scaffolding of half-truths, wishful thinking, and sheer panic. And no one's tearing it down. In fact, they're painting it, lighting candles around it, and calling it wisdom. You almost miss the internet. Almost. But no one ever brought you hot bread just for retweeting something confusing. Here, you're someone. You're the reason a man carries a pine cone in his pocket. You're the cause of several bread-related rituals. You're the whispered voice behind every unexplained draft. You've learned to lie like a local, and they love you for it. You are summoned at dawn by a boy with a stick and a sense of urgency. His words are rapid, his face pale, and his feet entirely bare. You follow him without question because in this world, anyone running towards something is either delivering bread or summoning you to a crisis. This time, it's not bread. You arrive at a hut that smells like smoked meat, sweat, and unresolved trauma. A man lies on a pile of hay, clutching his chest and wheezing like a haunted accordion. His eyes are wide with confusion or prophecy, possibly both. An older woman, part herbalist, part local menace, hovers nearby, muttering to herself and occasionally slapping the man's forehead with a sprig of something leafy. She has 2 teeth, both of them opinionated. She looks at you like you might be useful or flammable. He's got the lung rot, she announces with the grim authority of someone who once watched a goose die and decided it was her life's calling. A chorus of villagers has gathered. They nod sagely, as if the phrase lung rot holds scientific weight. Someone hands her a satchel of garlic. Someone else lights a candle. Another person suggests that the man angered a local spirit by peeing in the wrong direction. You try to offer something practical. Maybe he just needs rest, you say. Fluids, maybe. Ibuprofen? Everyone stops. Even the man gasping like a bellows pauses for dramatic effect. Ibu, what now? The herbalist asks, squinting like you just confessed to knowing Latin. It's a mild anti-inflammatory, you say. Helps reduce swelling, pain relief. They react the way people in your time might react if someone suggested curing migraines with ghost plasma. A man crosses himself so hard he dislocates something. A child gasps and drops a turnip. The herbalist hisses like a punctured wineskin. You are accused of sorcery within 12 seconds. The priest is fetched. The priest is always fetched. He smells of incense, burnt bread, and judgment. He listens to your explanation with the expression of a man watching someone juggle knives near a baby. When you finish, he nods solemnly, raises his hand, and anoints you with what you hope is holy water and not fermented duck fat. For this, he says, you must atone. You are handed a raw onion. You are told to eat it. The herbalist watches with malicious glee as you bite into it like a shameful apple. It burns in your mouth, up your nose, into your eyes, and deep into your soul. Tears fall freely. Whether from pain or humiliation, it's unclear. Someone pats your back with more force than necessary. Repentance, they say. It clears the bile. Meanwhile, the man on the hay is being treated with a combination of fire, suction, and leeches. A boy fans his feet, while the herbalist recites something that sounds like a recipe and a threat. She presses a hot stone to his back and declares the demon weakened. He coughs once. Everyone cheers. You stand in the corner, onion-breathed and emotionally scarred, watching a man survive what should have been fatal simply by virtue of stubborn biology and community optimism. A leech falls off his leg. A woman claps. A chicken wanders in and is quickly turned into a foot warmer. You try again, gently. In the future, you whisper to a curious child beside you. We have pills, clean tools, doctors with years of training. The child nods politely and asks if your people still believe in balancing humors by drilling holes in skulls. You do not answer. You watch as the herbalist pulls out a poultice that smells like defeat and smears it on the man's forehead. He groans. She declares it working. Everyone cheers again. The priest leads a short prayer and then demands a meal. The crisis has passed, not due to medical progress, but because the man ran out of energy to die. You are expected to help clean up. This means collecting the leeches, which are somehow loose, opinionated, and moving faster than you expected. You are also tasked with throwing out the excess fire, which involves kicking at embers until they hiss disapprovingly. You consider asking if anyone has discovered germ theory. You don't. That night, you lie in your hay bed, onions still lingering on your breath, watching shadows crawl across the wooden beams above you. Clive the chicken rests nearby, utterly unbothered by the day's events. You envy him. You think about how fragile life is here, and how stubbornly everyone survives anyway. No real medicine, no charts, just leeches, folklore, and the sheer power of communal delusion. And somehow, it works. Sort of. Occasionally. Tomorrow, Someone will come to you asking about the Ibu thing again. You know it. It will become legend. Some will say it's a spirit in a bottle. Others will say it's forbidden magic. The herbalist will swear it causes your teeth to melt, and you'll say nothing. You'll just nod, chew your bread slowly, and whisper something ominous about when the moon is thin and the river groans. Because that's what wisdom sounds like here. And no one argues with the one who ate the onion. You wake up with the feeling that your destiny lies elsewhere, not in a metaphorical, spiritual sense. Literally elsewhere, as in any place where your pillow isn't a burlap sack, stuffed with regret and straw mites. You sit up, rub the crust from your eyes, and stare out the small, misshapen window where the morning sun mocks you like a passive-aggressive candle. Today, you decide, is the day you leave. You are not sure where you're going, just away. Somewhere that doesn't smell like boiled root vegetables and existential dread. You grab the only things you own, half a loaf of crusty bread, a wooden spoon that might be cursed, and your pride, which weighs nothing and offers no protection. You wrap it all in a rag and tie it to a stick because that's what people do in stories, and frankly, you need the aesthetic. Clive clucks nervously from his corner, sensing betrayal. You look at him with soft guilt. Not this time, you whisper. Clive blinks. You take that as forgiveness. It's not. You sneak out the back, which is just the front, but slightly more muddy. You've memorized the path. Past the mill, through the potato field, over the fence that once tried to impale you, and into the woods. The forest is rumored to be haunted. You welcome that. Ghosts have better manners than most of the living here. The moment your foot hits the road, a dog appears. It's the kind of dog whose breed is vague and whose eyes say, "I have seen things." It pants excitedly and falls into step beside you, like this was a pre-arranged meeting. You try to shoo it away. It sneezes and ignores you. 2 minutes later, a small child materializes from a bush. You recognize her. She once threw a beet at your head. She is holding a stick and a slice of cheese. She says nothing, just nods and walks behind you like a particularly short bodyguard. You pick up speed. Clive joins. You didn't see him leave, but there he is, tucked under the child's arm, looking disappointed in you but committed to the journey. You consider sending them all back. You also consider setting yourself on fire. Both feel equally likely to succeed. The forest looms ahead, tall and suspicious. You step into it anyway, filled with stubbornness and a deep yearning to not have to wash yourself with moss again. Birds chirp overhead in a language you don't trust. Twigs snap underfoot. The dog sneezes again. You push forward. You step in mud. But not just any mud. This mud is an abyss. It is deep, cold, and somehow sentient. It wraps around your ankle with the precision of someone taking offense. You try to yank your foot out and twist your ankle with all the grace of a stunned deer. You yelp. The dog whines. The child giggles. You collapse into a majestic heap of regret. Clive flaps dramatically, offended by the noise, and lands on your back like a judgmental scarf. The child pokes you gently with her cheese. You wonder if this is what dying feels like. Slightly humiliating and a bit dairy-scented. You lie there, trying to decide if you'd rather limp onward or backward. The trees seem to lean in. They know the answer. It is backward. You limp. The dog walks beside you like an escort. The child skips. Clive maintains eye contact. It is not encouraging. By the time the village comes back into view, your pride has taken a beating. So has your ankle. And your spoon, which now has a tragic crack in it, perhaps caused by fate or the laws of slapstick. A few villagers spot you and raise their eyebrows but say nothing. That is somehow worse. You reach your hut. The goat is waiting. You do not know how it always knows, but it does. It bleats once, judgmentally, and walks away like a disappointed landlord. You sit down on the step and let out a breath that has been aging inside you since dawn. Clive settles beside you. The dog curls up at your feet. The child offers you the rest of her cheese. You take it. It is warm and tastes like resignation. You chew it slowly. No one says anything for a while. The sun lowers itself toward the hills like it too is done with you. The villagers go back to their routines. Someone starts yelling about turnips again. It's strangely comforting. You stare out at the horizon and wonder what's beyond those hills. Maybe cities, castles, a better mattress. You want to believe there's something out there waiting for you that isn't mud, disappointment, or surprise poultry. But right now, you're here, sore, muddy, questionably accompanied. And somehow, it doesn't feel quite as bad as before. You consider trying again. Not today, though. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Probably after your ankle stops throbbing and the goat forgets. For now, you sit. And for the first time in weeks, the breeze smells like something other than wet hay and defeat. It smells like maybe, just maybe, you could belong. Your promotion is announced by a man with one tooth and two opinions. He yells it in the middle of the square, while holding up what may be a dead squirrel or a hat. It's difficult to tell. You're standing nearby, trying to trade 3 questionable eggs for something less egg-like, when suddenly the crowd parts, and you are declared, loudly and with confusing pride, the new official assistant turnip sorter. No one claps. A child spits. Someone throws a leak in your general direction, and you can't tell if it's in celebration or protest. You don't remember applying for this position. You don't remember showing any interest in tuber hierarchy. You're not even entirely sure what a turnip looks like anymore, because most root vegetables here arrive covered in so much dirt that identifying them feels like archaeology. Still, there's a sense of finality in the air, like fate just handed you a burlap resume and said, "Good enough." The badge is presented to you ceremoniously. It is not, strictly speaking, a badge. It is a piece of vaguely carved wood with what might be your name etched into it, or possibly the word turnip. It's tied with fraying twine and smells aggressively like damp socks and regret. You accept it like someone being knighted with a spoon. You are now very important to no one. The village elder, a woman whose cloak appears to be made entirely out of goat fur and bad decisions, nods at you solemnly. "Don't mess it up," she says, before wandering off to yell at a cloud. You consider your life choices and pin the badge to your tunic. It pulls the fabric down at an awkward angle, but you suppose that's your uniform now. Your workplace is a shed that technically qualifies as shelter if one is feeling generous and has a loose definition of roof. It's filled with baskets. So many baskets. Each one heaving with root vegetables in varying stages of rebellion. The head turnip sorter is a man named Wilbert. He is 90% beard, 10% conspiracy theories. He greets you with a grunt and gestures toward a pile of turnips that appear to be staging an uprising. "This one's too lumpy," he says, hurling it over his shoulder. It hits a wall and explodes in a quiet act of protest. "This one's not lumpy enough." He throws another one into a basket marked feast. You ask what the system island. Wilbert stares at you for a long time and then says, "It's a feeling." You sort turnips by feel for 4 hours. Your hands are sore. Your back is sore. Your soul is sore. Turnips pass through your fingers like judgmental rocks, and you start to wonder if they're whispering to each other when you're not looking. Wilbert hums ominously every time you pick one up, which doesn't help. Clive visits once, stares at the chaos, and walks away like he's embarrassed to be associated with you. Lunch is a cold onion and a hunk of something that might be cheese or might be medieval chalk. You eat it outside the shed while staring at the badge now dangling limply from your tunic. A rooster pecks near your foot and ignores your authority entirely. You sigh. Your breath smells like rejection and garlic. People walk by occasionally. Some nod. One calls you turnip lord and cackles. You try to feel pride. You settle for digestion. In the afternoon, Wilbert takes a nap on a sack of parsnips and snores like a drowning accordion. You work alone, knee-deep in purplish spheres and moral decay. You begin to invent a game where you name each turnip. This one is Gerald. This one is Maud. That one's Steve, and he is suspiciously soft. You create a turnip family. You consider starting a turnip drama. You wonder if this is what madness feels like. At one point, the child who follows you everywhere shows up and offers you a rock. You accept it. It's the best thing that's happened all day. By sunset, you have sorted approximately 5 million turnips, or 30. Time has no meaning anymore. You smell like dirt and disappointment. Your badge has twisted itself into a new shape, one that may legally count as a threat. You drag yourself home, badge still pinned, dignity slightly less so. Your hut greets you with its usual scent, wet hay and goat pessimism. Clive is perched on the stool like a weary monarch. The dog has stolen your blanket. You curl up in the corner and try to remember a time when your job didn't involve tubers with personal vendettas. You dream of spreadsheets. You wake up confused, sore, and somehow already holding a turnip. You stare at it. It stares back. You nod. The turnip knows. You are assistant turnip sorter now. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to get good at it. You no longer flinch when something wet and indeterminate splashes on your leg. You don't ask questions. You don't even look down. You just sigh and move on, because odds are it's either mud, goat, drool, or something worse that no longer registers on your sensory radar. Dirt is not the enemy anymore. Dirt is your companion, your aesthetic, your skin tone. At some point, your hands stopped being hands and became tools. They are cracked, blistered, and perpetually stained with something brownish green that could be moss or possibly regret. Your fingernails are abstract art. You try to remember what lotion felt like, and it seems like a fever dream from a past life, a silky lie whispered by a capitalist ghost. Bathing is no longer a goal. It is a theoretical concept. You wash your face with rainwater and scrub your arms with the side of the house. You once caught yourself drying your hair using the air from a nearby forge fire. The blacksmith nodded at you with respect. You nodded back. Neither of you spoke of it again. You used to recoil from dirt like it was an insult. Now you wear it like lineage. You have patches of grime that have tenure. The back of your neck has gone rogue. Your ankles are just dust sculptures in boot form. Someone offered you a rag once, and you declined with the serene poise of a monk who has achieved enlightenment through filth. You have stopped laundering your clothes in any conventional sense. You beat them against rocks sometimes. You let them dry in the wind, stiff and belligerent, then put them back on with a grunt and a prayer. The sleeves protest. The pants whisper threats. But you emerge victorious each time, cloaked in fiber and fortitude. Your shirt has holes. You know each one by name. One is shaped like a bird, if the bird had been through war. Another opens and closes depending on your breathing, like a sorrowful mouth on your shoulder. You catch villagers glancing at it with concern, and you tell them it's a fashion from the southern coast. They nod, not wanting to seem uncultured. You once tried to brush your hair. The comb got stuck and never came out. It lives there now, a relic of your optimism. Occasionally a bird perches on it. You allow this. You are part of the ecosystem. The village children call you Mosscap. You do not correct them. There are worse nicknames. You've had worse nicknames. Turnip knees still haunts your dreams. Your skin is leather. You are impervious to sun, rain, and the accidental splash of boiling stew. A bee stung your forearm and died in confusion. You stepped on a thorn and didn't notice until someone pointed it out a day later. You pulled it out with your teeth and kept walking. The thorn was grateful to be released. You smell like a blend of smoke, hay, and barn gossip. It's not entirely unpleasant. People seem to find it comforting, in a weird ancestral memory sort of way. You catch more nods now. Less suspicion, more grudging acceptance. They call you weathered. They mean it as a compliment. You have become fluent in the language of dirt. You can read the soil. You know when it's tired, when it's thirsty, when it's holding a grudge. You speak to your potatoes before planting them, offering small apologies for what they're about to endure. They forgive you. You think, you hope. There is a certain joy in surrendering to it all. You no longer resist the inevitable. The muck, the sweat, the way your knees creak like old furniture. It's part of the rhythm now. You're not clean, but you're real. You've traded sparkle for grit, polish for permanence. You are sedimentally grounded. One morning, you find a mirror. It's cracked and clouded and barely reflective. You peer into it, expecting a goblin or possibly a root vegetable. Instead, you see you. Sort of. A scruffy, resilient creature with eyes that know too much about livestock and not enough about moisturizers. You nod at yourself. The reflection nods back. You both understand. Your feet are hooves in concept, if not in shape. You have forgotten what socks are. Your toes have unionized. You try to recall what it felt like to walk across a clean floor, and the thought makes you laugh. A bitter, dirt-caked laugh that sends a passing rooster running. A stranger once asked where you were from. You paused, thought about cities and phones and takeout containers, then looked at your hands, your sleeves, the mud-crusted hem of your shirt. You shrugged and said, "Here." And it was true. You didn't win the dirt. It won you, quietly, patiently, day by day, grain by grain. It wore you down and built something new in your place, something sturdy, something rough. Something that knows how to find warmth in compost and peace in a thunderstorm. Something, you realize, that feels a lot like home. It begins with shouting. Everything here does. A loud accusation, a flurry of gesturing, and the unmistakable noise of someone dramatically dropping a pie. You don't see the theft. You only see the aftermath. An upturned basket, a trail of crust, and a man standing very still. Like if he doesn't move, he won't be guilty. Spoiler, he's very guilty. The villagers gather with the urgency of people who have been waiting their entire lives for a scandal. They come from every direction, like mushrooms after rain, murmuring about justice and moral decay. The accused man, a wiry figure with suspiciously clean hands, looks like he regrets everything, especially the eel pie. The elders are summoned. Of course they are. Any excuse to form a semicircle and cast judgment from beneath woolen shawls. They squint, they whisper, they frown in unison. Someone uses the word treachery. Someone else says eel desecration. You are not sure if that's a culinary or spiritual offense. The options for punishment are laid out dramatically by a man who has clearly been rehearsing. Stocks are proposed, but dismissed as too splintery this time of year. Sermons are suggested, but one elder is still recovering from the last one and refuses to risk another theological ramble from the priest, who once described purgatory using only turnip metaphors. The final suggestion is novel and deeply concerning. Let the elder women yell at him until his soul is cleansed. A hush falls. The man gulps. 3 women step forward like a holy trinity of disappointment. They cross their arms. They lean slightly forward. One of them cracks her knuckles with the slow menace of someone about to verbally dismantle a person's entire personality, upbringing, and haircut. What follows is not a trial. It is a character assassination performed with the precision of a scalpel and the volume of an amateur opera. The man is called lazy, sly, disrespectful, and, worst of all, not someone you'd trust near sheep. That last one lands like a blow. The crowd gasps. Someone clutches their pearls. You think you see the pie thief consider fleeing into the woods, but he doesn't. Instead, he does something bold, something desperate. He apologizes. He falls to one knee in the mud. and swears he will never steal another eel-based food item again. He promises to help with firewood, to attend every mass, even the ones that go too long, and to personally clean the public latrine, which is now somehow more symbolic than functional. The crowd murmurs. The elders murmur. The sheep, present, naturally, look unimpressed. A decision is made. He will be forgiven. He will not be punished by stocks or sermons, or even extended exposure to elder disapproval. Instead, he will eat the pie. It is, by all accounts, a terrible pie. He is handed the half-crushed, dirt-dusted remains of what once might have been edible. He takes a bite. He chews. His face falls. You see him spiritually leave his body. The crowd nods, satisfied. Redemption has flavor, and it is salted eel mixed with regret. You are told this is how justice works here. Swift, public, and unnecessarily fishy. You are not sure how you feel about that. Part of you admires the efficiency. Another part of you is deeply unsettled by how quickly it turned into performance art. The elders return to their well-side thrones. The villagers disperse with the cheerful satisfaction of people who feel safer now that someone else was more foolish than they were. Later, you pass the pie thief. He looks haunted. You try to offer sympathy, but words feel inadequate. He nods solemnly. You nod back. No one speaks. It is the shared silence of two people who have both eaten things they shouldn't have. That evening, the village feels calm, balanced, like some invisible scale has been reset. You sit near the fire with a bowl of something warm and unidentifiable. You don't ask what's in it. You just eat quietly and hope it's not eel. You don't notice it at first. It happens gradually, the way moss creeps onto stone or how socks disappear in a modern dryer. You're just sitting by the fire, thinking about how long it's been since you saw toothpaste, when someone shifts over and pats the space beside them. No words. Just a quiet invitation, like a secret handshake without the hand part. You sit. Because why wouldn't you? Your knees hurt, the fire is warm, and this is the first time no one's asked you to churn anything. The fire crackles with the sound of wet wood, pretending to be dry. Someone throws on another log. Sparks rise like fireflies with poor direction. Around you, people talk about weather patterns like they're personal betrayals. Someone insists that the moon is too round this week, and that this is clearly an omen. No one argues. The moon is suspiciously smug tonight. A small child waddles over and begins braiding your hair with the stubborn confidence of someone who has never once brushed theirs. You freeze. It's unclear whether this is an act of affection or a prank, but they are humming while they do it, so you let them. The tugging is uneven, aggressive even. You are 70% sure they're tying knots, but it doesn't matter. This is intimacy, peasant style. Someone hands you a turnip. You don't ask why. You hold it like a gift, because here it is one. You nod solemnly. The turnip nods back in spirit. Across the fire, a man you only know as Wilfred the Loud finishes telling a long story that may or may not involve a haunted mill. You can't follow all the details, partially because it's in thick dialect, and partially because he got distracted halfway through and started describing a goose fight. But the crowd laughs in the right places, and so do you. You are no longer the strange outsider who once screamed at a chicken. You are now the strange insider who still screams at chickens, but in a more relatable way. The child finishes your hair and announces it is done. You don't touch it, you just say thank you. It feels like a crown woven by tiny, sticky hands. Someone brings out stew. It smells edible, which is a marked improvement from last week's stew, which smelled like ambition and pond scum. You are handed a bowl, and with it, a spoon. Not just any spoon. This spoon is carved from wood. Lumpy, asymmetrical, possibly cursed. The handle is shaped like a snake, if snakes were mostly straight lines and confusion. But it's smooth from years of use. and the old man who gives it to you does so with ceremony. He places it in your hands like it's sacred, like it's not just for soup, but for trust. You almost cry. No one warns you this will happen, that you'll get emotional over cutlery, that someday, after months of physical hardship, social confusion, and agricultural humiliation, a misshapen spoon will make you feel like you belong. But here you are, misty-eyed in front of 10 people who once considered you a witch, and now apparently consider you furniture. In a good way. Someone claps you on the back and calls you one of us. Not with fanfare, just casually, like they've thought it for a while and now finally remembered to tell you. You smile, but it's crooked because your face is still not used to smiling without suspicion. You mumble something unintelligible and stare into the fire like a character with a meaningful past. The spoon is warm in your hand. It's not magic, it just matters. Later, when the fire is low and people start drifting off to their homes or hay piles, you stay a moment longer. The night is cold, but not unkind. You can hear someone snoring nearby. A goat bleats once in the distance, like punctuation. You tuck the spoon into your coat like it's fragile, like it needs protection. Really, it's you who needs it. The stars overhead look the same as they did in your time. Maybe brighter, maybe louder. You whisper your old name to them, just to hear it again. It feels distant, not gone, just quiet, like an old shirt you don't wear anymore but still keep in the drawer, just in case. You get up. Your knees pop like cheap fireworks. You limp toward the hut with the wobbly door and the persistent draft that insists on friendship every night. Clive the chicken is already asleep in your straw bed, because of course he island. You nudge him over. He resents it, but relents. You lie down next to your spoon, your turnip, and your terrible hairstyle. You are itchy, mildly bruised, and more loved than you realize. Tomorrow, you'll wake up early and probably get pecked again. But tonight, you are warm and full and no longer alone. You wake up before the rooster. This is not intentional. It's just that your hay pile has developed a sharp personality overnight and now pokes your spine with great enthusiasm. The blanket, once burlap, now more whole than fabric, offers all the warmth of damp paper. You sit up, rub your face with hands that are indistinguishable from the dirt you sleep in, and watch the first soft flicker of orange push through the thatch roof. You think about going back. You really do. You could. Maybe. Possibly. There's a corner of your brain that still believes someone, somewhere, is working on this. That a team of scientists in lab coats is typing aggressively, shouting things like, "Time rift," and "Get me more data," while frantically drawing on whiteboards. You imagine them calling your name into a glowing portal, begging you to step through, to come back to Wi-Fi and microwaves and pants with zippers. But none of that is here. What is here is the smell of morning porridge, boiled oats, and wood smoke, and a faint undercurrent of despair. Clive the chicken is standing on your chest, which is both alarming and somehow affectionate. He blinks slowly. You blink back. Somewhere outside, a bell rings. It is not a fancy bell. It is literally a pot being hit with a ladle. Breakfast time. You could leave. You've said that before. You've packed before. You've stared at the edge of the woods with conviction. And each time, something small pulls you back. A goat with indigestion. A child who insists you must attend her performance of The Tragedy of the Mud Pie. A particularly sunny patch of field that smells like clover and doesn't judge your modern softness. You rise. Your knees crack. Your back groans. Clive hops off and pecks a worm out of your boot, which you choose to interpret as a sign of deep affection. You step outside. The village is already awake. Smoke curls from crooked chimneys. Someone is shouting about geese again. Children run by in a blur of dirt and joy. An old woman spits near your foot. It's not personal. It's just luck insurance. You eat the porridge. It's less gray than usual, slightly more beige. You nod at the cook, and she nod back like this is a sacred ritual you now both understand. A child offers you a flower with one petal. You accept it like it's a crown. A teenager insults your posture. You insult their hat. Balance is restored. You find your turnip pile, your badge. Official assistant turnip sorter, still proudly pinned to your tunic with a bent nail, catches the light. You hold up a particularly bulbous turnip and show it to Clive. He seems unimpressed. A local dog sniffs you, sneezes, and walks away. You interpret this as acceptance. Later, you mend a fence with someone who may or may not be your friend. You don't share many words, just grunts and occasional eye contact. It feels intimate. You help clean the well. You hold a crying toddler. You chase off a goat with more confidence than skill. You sit by the fire with the elders and manage not to embarrass yourself much. At some point, you realize no one is calling you new one anymore. Someone says your name, your actual name. You haven't heard it in so long. It feels like being touched, like being remembered. You pretend not to react, but your chest is suddenly full of soft thunder. Night falls. You eat something that may have once been a pigeon. You decide not to ask. The stars are too many. The sky looks like a spilled jar of salt. Someone plays a flute badly. Someone else sings worse. It's perfect. You think again, just once, about the world you left. You imagine the noise, the lights, the screens, the vending machines. You think about sitting in traffic and swiping through opinions. You think about doorbells and deadlines. And then you think about Clive's dumb little face, and the way the village smells when it rains, and how the porridge doesn't taste like disappointment anymore. It just tastes like home. You stretch out on your hay. It still pokes, but less angrily. Your blanket is still holes, but they're your holes. The air is cool, but your bones have stopped caring. You close your eyes. You sleep deeply, dreamlessly, like someone who belongs. You could still go back, probably, but you don't. Not today.